a sweet, brilliant, lovely young man living in my house, um, who would go to school and be a different person. He felt he had to hide his sensitivity. He felt he had to hide his struggles. He felt that if he asked questions, he would be thought of as stupid. He felt that, and we both felt, I think, that the public school was much more concerned with sticking a label on him and assigning him somewhere than addressing where he might struggle or where he might be strong. When he first started at Flex School, there was sort of a detox period. He came in the middle of the year. I think he came in after February break in his junior year, which is, not an ideal time to change schools for sure. But he came in at that point so bruised, and so hurt by the bullying he had experienced, by the neglect he had experienced um, from a resource room teacher who at that point told him to shut up when he came online, when he needed questions answered, from a school district that kept insisting that all they needed to do was put more restrictions on him as he was getting closer to graduation, when the goal is always to make it less restrictive, that they could just add more restrictions and that would help him. He came into Flex School and started to hear his own voice in the way that he always had wanted it heard. People listened to him. They respected the challenges. They really took time to understand where the struggles were, and they appreciated his vast interests. He has a wide range of interests as well as some depth in certain areas, and where he didn't do well, like in math, they met him where he was and said, "Okay, all your strengths, perfect. All your weaknesses, also perfect. We're going to work with where you are and move the needle towards where you'd like to be. What do you like to do? What do you like to learn about? How do you learn best?" All of these things were never in the conversation that he had outside the house. We talked often about, here's where the struggles are, here's how we think you learn best, um it was such a miraculous turnaround within those first few months, and it really was solidified when we had our last meeting with the school district. And again, he was going into a senior year, and they were saying, "Oh, well, we'll put him in a more restrictive environment so he can get more attention, and we'll put him," which would have been horrible for him on every level, socially, emotionally. It would have been terrible, but it put him in a silo so that they could manage whatever they thought they were managing. And we came off that call, and then we had a curriculum planning call with Jackie, who said, "Oh my God, we have a horror fiction class for you, and you're going to love it." And he was like, ding, because all he wanted was to be heard. All he wanted was an opportunity to learn how he learned best. He thrived in the classes that she picked based on how well she knew him. And it was so your question was, how did he change? He changed from a kid who was completely, "I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I can't learn, I'm so smart but I can't succeed," to a kid who was a leader at school, who got elected to the president of his class, which was really something we never would have thought of, to a kid who was listened to and respected, and who had great relationships with teachers who really got to know him. Um, and he never really had more than one friend at a time in public school. It was just too much to manage. And he was a hard friend to have because he was anxious and socially awkward and over the heads of a lot of kids, and could be unreliable, didn't get invited to birthday parties because he would become overwhelmed easily, that kind of thing. But he met his people at Flex School. He found this group of guys who were just like him in their own weird ways, and special and thoughtful and funny, and great parents, and great kids, make for a great environment for both of us. So it was there's not only one way that Flex School changed our lives. There's a lot of ways. I did find my people. I feel like the experience of parenting a twice exceptional child can be very isolating. You become an apologist often for how they're not like the other kids. They don't do sports. They don't do theater. They don't do, it becomes a litany of where are we going to fit in? And it becomes very isolating. And as an only parent, it was particularly isolating for me because it was just the two of us managing that. Um, we had a couple of opportunities, one on a field trip where I met another mom and we spent the whole day together going, uh-huh, uh-huh, like so hungry for the shared experience. And a dinner the night the kids had their prom, where about 20 of us went out. And there was this commonality of language that we sometimes see with our kids, but there was a commonality of language and experience where we all said, "Oh, yours was in the NICU, mine was in the NICU. Oh, yours struggled in school. Oh, my it was sort of like, oh, the I have a friend who says isolation lies, and I think that's correct for the 2E parenting experience. Often we're 2E as well, and have not successfully often found our adult friends. Um, but feeling like we're failing because we can't decode our kids successfully for what other people expect is really hard. And talking to these other parents, we've spent some time together since. They had a graduation party. They've gone out together. We've gone out with each one of them. Um, Listening to the kids talking to each other is like watching a litter of puppies get reunited. They're just so excited and they jump right in where they were. And the parents are those kind of people for me too, where how's your kid doing? Oh, I understand that struggle. Here's what might have worked for me, but may not work for you. Here's a conversation we've had. It's so lovely and familiar and shorthand. There's a real shorthand to the 2E experience once you've lived it to this point. All of our kids are 18, 19. Um, I would love to offer it. I wish there was a mentoring program where we could talk to younger parents of younger children and say, you're on the right path. Like you found your way to a great center for it by finding your way to flex school, but we're here to walk with you a little further forward, and whatever you've imagined for your child is possible. It's gonna look like a different path than when you were in public school, because public school will tell you you have to do A, B, C, D in that order, and our kids are a little more like C, B, D, A. And in their own way, it's a different alphabet. My kid, it's runes. It's Norse runes and not A, B, C, D or C, B, D, A. Um, but we see you. We see the challenge and the struggle and the brilliance and the wonder that is your kid. So you're not alone, and you're never on the path alone, even if it feels very isolating, just because, you have to find the other unicorns. and then and then you're among your people or your unicorns. It's so validating when somebody else says to you, "Oh, yeah, the struggle's real." Like I really get that. And then you don't feel like you're crazy for wanting more for your kid. And you don't feel like you have to settle for the scraps that you receive and let me say this, no knock on the public school system. There's some schools that do parts of this really, really, really well. But the school systems are set up to accommodate the largest number of students for the widest need. And if your kid is at one end of the curve or the other, they might get what they need. But if they're in the mushy middle, they can get lost in sort of the average of expectations. And they don't always get to rise to be exceptional. That's why the stories of people who succeed in spite of are the ones we tell. But flex school lets them succeed because of instead of in spite of.